It's 2:03 on Tuesday, January 28th, 2025. This is the Advisory and Finance Subcommittee E, hearing budgets for Planning and Development, Health and Human Services. This meeting is being conducted both in person and via Zoom. If you wish to attend the meeting via Zoom, you may do so using the meeting ID 939-4567-8649, passcode 001335. And that is also available as audio only. So with that, I'm going to do introductions of the subcommittee. Let's start with Molly.
Polly O'Connor.
David Trudell. Mark Steiner.
Bruce Howard, I am the chair of the subcommittee E.
Emily Tompkins.
All right, and presenting, we have to start us off,
Lee Hartman, Director of Planning and Development for the town, and then I also have Lauren Lynn, Deputy Director of Planning and Development.
so Lee, you want to start us off?
Sure. So just a quick overview, some new faces. Planning and Development consists of the Planning Department that provides staff support to the Planning Board, Zoning Board, Historic District Commission, and I have to look around the room when I do this, Conservation Commission, Open Space Committee, Affordable Housing Trust. We have Community Development Office that does affordable housing, Conservation Commission, and Zoning Board Historic District. So, and in addition, we have 17 different community committees that we provide staff support for in the town, in addition to those bigger ones that we just mentioned. When we look at the budget this year, most of the increases in the salary and wages line item is simply just contractual requirements that are in there. The only other increase is we're asking for $4,000 increase in the overtime budget. Again, as I mentioned that we have those 17 committees, we provide staff support, and it's very important for some of these committees, such as Zoning Board of Appeals, Planning Board, Conservation Commission, the legal ramifications of doing something wrong are could be very expensive for the town. So we have staff support that goes to those meetings, the administrative assistants, and some of the professionals are entitled to overtime to attend those meetings. And what we're finding now, more and more, the demand to have staff support. So a person like myself or Lauren, we get paid salary, so we don't get overtime. But some of the other staff people, especially the admins, are entitled to overtime to cover these meetings. What we're also finding is the conservation planner, planning technician, Rich Baca, Patrick Farah, they're entitled to overtime too. And more as we have weekly meetings for the conservation, we have requests that come in for them to attend town meeting, committee of precinct chairs. Those things are all they're entitled to overtime. So it's a nominal increase in our overtime, but again, I know I do not.
No, don't let people in.
Okay,
No.
sorry.
Okay.
But he's on. Is he check to make sure he's?
I wouldn't know anything. You can listen.
We can remove him too. You wanna ask who he is?
Can you unmute him so we can?
It is a public meeting.
You just asked to unmute it under view profile.
Bill, we're unfamiliar with your name. Can you tell us who you are and your reason for joining this meeting?
I'm a town meeting member from precinct 17.
Very good. So we do not have public comment scheduled for this meeting, but if you wish to address the subcommittee, please indicate so to me and I'll recognize you so you may speak.
Raising your hand down, your animated hand would be the best approach. So again, so it's just a nominal increase in overtime to cover that. And again, with all those committees and the requirements for staff support, drafting of minutes, drafting of decisions, attending the meetings to help coordinate with the boards. Just looking for a nominal increase in that line item. The other increases that we have that just highlight, the Open Space Committee is really looking to do additional public outreach, so they have a request for $4,500 into our budget. This is something we haven't had before, and that's for public outreach for flyers, guides, posters, children activities, materials, things to just get the word out about what we have for open space, our open space properties in the town, and those types of things.
And where is that? Which line item is that $1,000 in?
So I'm just looking at my overall report. Can't see. So I think that's under technical services, I believe. You have the detailed one?
I did. There isn't one for just 1,000, so
No, it's an increase of 4,500. So I'm going to say that that's, there it is right there. So it is
meetings, ed and training.
meetings, education, training. And then the other item. So the other two items, one is a $5,000 increase in consulting services. So right now, for the first time ever this year, we had $25,000 for consulting services. I can tell you this day and age, 25,000 doesn't not go very far. But this is money, we use this money to expand the historic district. We had a consultant because again, some of these things are, I'm very proud of what we're able to do in-house without consultants. The open space plan, a lot of the affordable housing plan, those are all things we did in-house with existing staff, but some things require additional expertise. An example is when we went to expand the historic district into the Bradford Street area, we needed to hire a consultant to help us with the technical documents. And as I referred to last time, the Conservation Commission was looking to update their regs. We needed technical services to help us with the technical aspects of amending those rules and regulations. This year, I think we have a good chance of looking to expand the historic district or create one for the first time in North Plymouth with some of the cottage properties. I think people are very concerned about that. So this money is used mainly for these boards, Planning Board, Conservation Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, Historic District Commission, to use this money to help with them with the technical pieces that we may need. Right now, for the first time in 20 years, the Historic District Commission is updating its guidelines for how you can renovate or do work in the historic district, and we're using that money too. It's also great money so that if we have grants and they always are looking for matching money, we can use this money to help match when we go for grants. We use this money for the whole tech master plan that we're undergoing right now. We're using some of this as a match for that grant so that when we go to the federal government and said we need, I think they gave us 280,000. We were able to use part of this money as a match for the money that they'd like to see matched to their grants. And then the last one is for the first time ever, we're looking to put some money into training and education so that the planning director and or the assistant director can attend the national planning conferences. It's always great. We do the local one. It's called the Southeastern American Planning Association. So it's Southeastern Massachusetts, Southeastern New England, Connecticut, Rhode Island. We do that every year, and it's a great way to meet other planners, find out what's new in the area. So this gives us the opportunity not just to look regionally, but to look nationally. And again, just looking for that expansion. And again, in a nutshell, that's the changes, fairly minor, fairly minimal from last year.
All right, I know I have several questions, but I'll entertain questions from the subcommittee members now. Go ahead.
I just have a real quick one to start off with. The cell phone reimbursement, why did that double?
Because we have two people now using town cell phone or using personal cell phones instead of a town. So Lauren right now has a town cell phone, she'll be turning that in. And that'll be a reduction in the money that goes to procurement. And in return, she'll just using her own cell phone and take the stipend.
Anything else makes sense to me.
Okay, I did want to ask about the overtime, year to date. It shows us 8,500. Do you anticipate spending most of that this year? I mean, it's
Yes,
we're
I-
halfway
I
through the
do.
year.
But we try to be careful. We try to turn back money if possible. Again, what I've been doing a lot more, especially with the two OP people and professional people, I've encouraged them more to take comp time. But what that means is it's less time in the office. So they work night meetings, they get time and a half off that goes into the week, so it's less production. I'd like to be able to
Okay.
offer them more.
Do you
money.
anticipate doing that in the coming year? So is the 4,000 increase in
Yeah,
overtime
yeah,
really
but-
needed?
Yeah, I believe so. Again, we can. Right now, we push them very hard not to use the overtime, and this will give us the ability to have them have the overtime. And actually have them in the office too, instead of. If they work 3 hours of overtime, that's it's time of 4 hours, that means it's 6 hours they get off. So we just want to have that flexibility to allow them compensation by payment versus having them take the time off.
Okay, and
Agricultural commission,
What about it?
we're just taking that on.
Yes, the agricultural commission is another night meeting that I don't think we've been doing lately, but we're adding that to the staff support we're providing.
all right. And similar question for the management and consulting. Year to date, 1,500.
Yeah, so I'm trying to be careful about how, I don't want to spend all the money at the beginning of the year and then find out there's some opportunity I missed. So I know this year for that one, what I'm going to do at the end of the year, there's one of the most important things for the town is to have an inventory of its historic homes. So what I plan to do as we get closer to the end of the year, and I know I don't have to use any of that money, I'm gonna use it through the Historic District Commission to hire a consultant to do inventories, mainly of the downtown, but there's probably 25% of the buildings downtown are not inventoried for historic purposes. So what that would be is we'll hire a consultant, they'll look at the history and be able to say, here's the architectural style of this building, here's who's owned it, here's why it is or is not historically significant. So again, I'm a little nervous earlier in the season to spend all that money just in case I need it. Right now, all of our grants, as I kind of mentioned, the whole tech grant, all of our federal grants are on hold. I'm not sure what the implications of that are. This money, it will be a nice bridge if we have to cover some of the costs we've already incurred that the federal government's not gonna honor.
Okay, and I know that we've talked about looking at a historic district for North Plymouth.
yeah.
Would that inventory include North Plymouth?
It could. It depends on how much money I have left, but yeah, I think that would be a good place to also look. I know right now, through the work we're doing with the downtown historic district, we have a list already of buildings that need to be inventoried. The other thing I would add is that we've been pretty aggressive. One of the things I'm proud of, I do so many things in this job, is we support the Visitor Services Board and tourism, we support historic district. One of the things I love to do is historic district nominations. So since I've been here, we did Burial Hill, we did the Mayflower 2, we did the Pinewood Camp down off of Halfway Pond. And so getting districts, having sites nominated on the National Register is another one. So again, if there's money that's available, nominating an important historic property in Plymouth to the National Register is another thing we can use that money for.
Very good.
Bruce,
Yes,
just to let you know, Lorenzo set his hand up.
Lorenzo, go ahead. Thank you, Jeanette.
Thank you through the chair. Mr. Hartman, thank you for going over the material changes to your budget on the line items very well. I had just a question. I know you talked about the master planning initiative. Did you speak to the Plymouth Regional Economic Development Foundation and the whole that whole part of the 1,600 acre Pilgrim power plant property?
No, but I can speak I can speak to that. So
Okay,
what we've done is we've secured a federal grant, EDA, Economic Development Agency, I think it's there, EDA stands for. And that money is what we're using to do the whole tech master plan. And just so that the people here understand, the way we've set this up, we don't have a committee that's overseeing that. We have Sasaki Associates as our consultants. And the goal here is we have a survey out right now. And in my career, I've never seen, we have over 3,000 responses already. It's that I've never seen a response level that high. So we have a survey out there for the community, and then we have a public forum coming up in February, where the goal here is to say to the community, what do you think we should happen with this property? And then we'll meet with the selectmen and the planning board and say, here's what we've heard from the community. What do you think as the elected boards? And then Sasaki's gonna go back and let's say, for example, overwhelmingly, the town says, all of it should be permanently protected, none of it should be used for anything else. Their job will be to come back and say, okay, but here's what it's gonna cost, and here's what it will cost taxpayers. Maybe somebody says it should be a convention center. Here's what would be involved if you wanted to look at a portion of this property for a convention center. Somebody else says it should be commercial development. Here's the challenges or the positives of doing that. So again, I think it's gonna be a mix of different uses, but the way we've set it up is to first ask the community what you think, go back to the elected officials, hear what they say, and then run some scenarios, and then again, go back to the public and say, based on what we've heard, here are 3 scenarios, what do you think? And then go back to the planning board and select board and say, here's what we've heard, what do you think? And then come back with a final plan that says, here's what we think is the best use. Now, the kind of fly in the ointment here is that we don't own this land and we don't control it. It's owned by Holtec itself. So Holtec has been involved in this right from the very beginning. They're involved. So hopefully when we get to the end of this, we have an idea of what the community wants, and we can use that to convince Holtec and work with Holtec to say, hey, you might want to put Pilgrim 3 here and Pilgrim 4. Maybe you think you're gonna do a better deal by selling it for residential development, but here's what we want for our community and let's work with you. And they know there's some level of work because almost anything they do out there is gonna require town meeting action for a zoning change.
thank you. From a budgeting standpoint, do you believe the EDA will cover this whole process? It's
I
not
am
gonna
not-
dip it.
I am not encouraged. I have a bad feeling I'm putting this on hold for 90 days. I'm not sure what kind of contract change I'm gonna have to do to the consultant, if they're even gonna hang on. But yeah, I've already notified them based on, we just heard last night,
Right.
today. I put them on notice that, we're gonna wait until Friday to see what happens, but we may be putting the whole thing on hold.
Would we bootstrap it through your current budget? Is there
No,
wiggle room?
not to the order, no, this is the total budget is 308,000. So
Okay.
we don't have that kind of wiggle.
Right, okay.
We
Thank
may
you.
at some point, if the town selectmen, planning board, people feel like we should pick that project up, we could go to a future town meeting, which would be the fall, to seek town meeting funding for that, but I'm hopeful that at some point EDA survives all this and the money for economic development survives, but who knows?
Right, right. Thank you. All to the chair. Thank you.
Emily?
Yes, just clarification. You had said that the open space communication things were under meetings and education. I'm looking at the detail of technical
Technical
services.
services. Yeah.
It's
Okay.
like printing and reports.
Yes, so it's under technical.
So I think it's
services.
under that. And then just quick question, it's small, but the department requested $500 for equipment and then the select
Yeah.
board did not include that. So just what
Yes,
happened?
so there was leftover ARPA money, so we got the equipment now, so yeah, and again, we discussed whether it's such a small amount. Whether we decide to exclude that from the budget, doesn't matter to me, we have what we've asked for through the federal ARPA money, so. I would also point out too, with the consulting services, I don't view that as my department's money. So if it's David Gould, in environmental management, the town manager's office, or somebody else needs assistance for different things, I think that money is available to the community, not just a board that happens to be under my purview.
Okay, and just a couple of follow-up questions. Thank you for the overview. That was most helpful. noted that you said seeking CPC funds for April town meeting to support recording land.
Mhm.
And my understanding is now that that's going to be an article,
Yes,
not
on
through
the special
CPC.
town meeting.
Okay, and I welcome Lauren to her first budget subcommittee. I was curious, do you have Lauren providing direct supervisory to any areas within your
So
department?
we co-manage, so.
Okay, I believing that hands-on experience is key to
That's why she's here.
that I think she should have direct management responsibility for at least one group. I
Kinda
would,
tells me
I
what
would
to do already.
suggest conservation, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so your previous question, so just so the committee understands too, there's a court decision that came out, so what we do regularly is we find land that we think the town should preserve as conservation land. It's land that we hold mostly for tax title, failure to pay taxes. So we go to town meeting and ask town meeting to vote to take that land and permanently protect it as open space. What we're finding is that the recent laws, to make it very clear that this is land that's to be protected, we need to put an affidavit on record on the property that says town meeting made this vote, so 20 years from now, we're not looking for a town meeting vote. You go to the registry of deeds and right there on the title is an affidavit that says this is conservation land and is permanently protected. So it's, I think, $150 per parcel to do that. And many of these parcels are these small postage size stamp size lots. So it's really an important thing for future generations to have this land protected. We talked about doing it through CPC, found out it wasn't eligible. Then we thought we'd do it through capital, found out that that's not the place to go. So now we just have a general article for the money to do it through just the general fund. And that'll be at special town meeting.
Thank you. Any other questions from committee members? At this time, I'll accept a motion.
I'm actually not clear on the motion.
You would move to approve the Board of Selectmen budget for,
I'm moving to approve the Board of Selectmen budget for fiscal year.
I'll second that.
so we'll do roll call. Bruce, Mr. Howard says yes. Ms. O'Connor?
Yeah.
Mr. Pizarro,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Ms. Tompkins?
Yes.
And Mr. Trudell.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
With that, we'll move on.
And if I could, just not to dominate here, but also I'm very accessible and very available. I know people, why did you do those 40Bs, or why haven't you done this, or why can't we do that? Always, please reach out to either one of us. Happy to have those discussions with people. I know there are more questions out there. This isn't the forum, but we are always available to have those conversations.
Thank you.
Before I let you go, let's talk about the 5 off-street revolving funds. Are those funded at $1 each? Is that-
Yes, so we have 5 off-street parking funds. So what we did, so Plymouth has 5 village centers: Manamet, Cedarville, West Plymouth, North Plymouth, and Plymouth Center. So we've never seen money come into Manamet, Cedarville, or West Plymouth. But we have a parking fund that's set up to say that if you come downtown, we don't want to tell a new restaurant or a new use that you can't come here because there's no parking. So there's a payment that we say that you can pay into a parking fund to help offset the cost of parking. And we have that in North Plymouth too. The parking lot that you see in North Plymouth across from St. Mary's, that was funded through this account. We have, I think, I just looked today, I think it's $197,000 in the Plymouth Center parking fund. So at this point, we don't have a use for that money. Any of that money would be used probably in cooperation with Park Plymouth. So at this point, we're not asking for any expenditure of those money. If there is a request to do that, it would take a vote of the finance committee as well as the selectmen to authorize those expenditures. But at this point, we're only asking for the $1 appropriation because we don't have an identified use. I did talk today to Park Plymouth. There might be something coming down the line, but that's still very preliminary.
Okay. I forget, do we need to vote on the? No, okay.
And tomorrow night, I will be at the last public forum for the master plan, so I will not be there for the parking fund.
All right, let's move on. So Paul,
Yes,
you want to introduce yourself?
sure. I'm Paul Nachiavelli. I'm the program director for the Plymouth Redevelopment Authority.
Please proceed.
So we originally asked for an increase. We were running low on funds, but significant increase. But we're just asking for the 2% from what we received last fiscal year to cover our operating expenses. We run first-time home buyer classes online and in person for a lot of Plymouth residents. Sometimes they purchase in Plymouth, sometimes they don't, but we don't discriminate, with that. We open it up to everyone. And like I say, a lot of Plymouth residents, I just did one last night with a Plymouth resident who was buying in Plymouth. And so we offer that. I don't know anyone else in the area that does offer that. The other one is we run affordable housing lotteries for rental properties and purchases, mostly rentals. And we can get very busy with those. Again, often Plymouth residents, but we keep it open to everyone. And we offer a lot of services for Plymouth residents that, to my knowledge, is not being covered by anyone else other than the redevelopment authority. I get calls all the time on a weekly basis for Plymouth residents who are looking for counseling in regard to foreclosure prevention, mortgage counseling, pre and post closing, affordable housing resale, and the 40B if they're going to resell the property. We talk to people about reverse mortgage counseling, not just the people in the reverse mortgage, but sometimes the children or the ones inheriting the property and how all that works, credit counseling and tenant counseling. And we work in collaboration with Mass Housing Partnership, and also we just we're continuing to work in collaboration with Habitat for Humanity in regard to a tax title foreclosure that we were lucky enough to receive, and we the board voted to pass it along to Habitat, who can redevelop that property. But we've kept our hands in the project, and we're looking forward to working with Habitat alongside them as they redevelop this property down in Manomet.
So if I could just, redevelopment authority is a separate elected, it's one of the elected boards we have. Stephen Michael Palmer here is the chair of the redevelopment authority, so it's a separate elected board through town elections. And the staff support is provided by Paul, and it's a part-time contractual staff support, no benefits. And again, this money goes to support his salary, which is again is part-time without benefits, paid in part through this money. This only represents a portion of the money that they acquire through, again, people doing the training, other grants, those types of things.
So Paul, the money that you had asked for, you said you had asked initially for a larger sum. Is that the 69,880? And it looked like the select board cut that back to the 2% that you referred to, correct?
Yes,
Okay,
Yeah, so it was
And
an
you can live with that?
$85,000 total request was the initial request.
okay.
So if you add that to the current amount, it was $85,000 total budget.
Other questions from, yes, Dave?
You mentioned that you are turning over a house to Habitat for Humanity.
yes.
Do they have the ability to go outside of Plymouth? And for like a lottery or drawing of people to live in that house that they redeveloped?
I don't know the answer to that.
I do. They have their own lottery system, so what we did is we gave them land. We gave them a piece of land up at Strand Ave, 21 Strand Ave. It's in the back of the package store up there. It's been vacant, and Lee said it was tax title, et cetera, and it's been bounced around to the Plymouth Housing Trust, which I'm a member of, and they didn't know what to do with it, so I made a motion that, the redevelopment authority will take it over and we'll find something to do with that parcel, So again, Paul just mentioned that we sold it to Habitat for Humanity for $7,500. It's very low, but what they're gonna do is build a house there, they're gonna have their own lottery, and they're gonna put someone in there for affordable housing.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So the last one we did, and we work with them through redevelopment authority and through our office to partner with Habitat on a number of projects. So last one we did on Indian Ave in Manamet, that is a local janitor from one of the schools, a veteran who they selected. So I'm not sure if they do a local preference, but I do think when they do their lottery, they try to get the best fit. And the last one they did was a local town employee veteran, in the last one we did with them.
And the person that I met with last night on the first time home buyer class is a Plymouth resident, and they are getting a property through Habitat in Plymouth. So I think that they certainly are, their primary focus is Plymouth residents. But don't know the answer as to whether or not they will take applications from.
They definitely do. You can't limit it. You can't discriminate. So there could be a local preference, and we always kind of try to have local preference, veteran preference, but you can't limit it.
That's cool.
Other questions? All right, motion.
I motion to approve the Plymouth Redevelopment Authority's fiscal year 2026 budget.
I second it.
Mr. Howard votes yes. Ms. O'Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Pizarro?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Tompkins?
Yes.
And Mr. Trudell?
Yeah.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Nice day.
Thanks for the work you do.
Roxanne,
Go.
That's about it.
Right. But I think.
They ask for more. That's it. I don't have anything more than that.
How are you?
We're running a couple minutes late.
Oh, good. I'm impressed already with time management, because this is not easy, right? Been waiting.
And so we're at veteran services. That is, I believe it's 8. I think it's 8.
and if I go to my file, and then we become installments.
Not in the same sequence as the,
It's okay.
Bruce, excuse me, sorry, can you take these out?
Yes,
Handouts,
please.
which I just, thank you.
you find it?
Sure.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yes. I think of them first. I love it. I'm not sure which glasses.
Let's do quick introductions again. We'll start with Molly.
Lee Trudell. Mark Snyder.
Bruce Howard, I chair.
Emily Tompkins.
Michelle Brady, Commissioner of Health and Human Services.
Roxanne Whitbeck, the Director of Veteran Services.
All right, Michelle, you're up. So unless, Michelle, unless you want to kick off with any,
Roxanne,
with any comments
sure,
across HHS?
we just wanted to, and this is Emily Wilson, Assistant Commissioner of HHS, and we just handed you, won't go into depth, but just so you have an understanding of who Health and Human Services, who we are, what we do, because last year we were so new that I felt like I didn't even know our purpose yet, and I didn't. But we've developed a year in and just wanted to give you an overview of the structure of HHS in outside of the 7 divisions or 6 divisions and committee that we kind of oversee the work that we're doing. So at your leisure, this is just a little fact sheet, little information for you about what we're doing in the big scope of Health and Human Services for the town of Plymouth.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. But I entrust the veterans agent to know her stuff, as they say. So, take it away.
Thank you. If you look at our little fact sheet, you will see that we are asking just for a small increase in our budget. 1,424 is due to contractual settling of SEIU and 700 for headstones and markers because unfortunately during the winters and the weather, our cemetery markers take a beating. So we just were asking for a little bit more money on that line item. The rest goes on to tell you, my department, whatever we pay out of our veteran service line item, we get reimbursed 75% by the state of Massachusetts. We have never had a denial in the whole time I've been doing this job for upward of 17 years now. So it's a win-win for the town as far as investing money into that line item. You'll notice some of the things that we try to conserve money. There's a web-based program that I use to file all my compensation and pension claims. It's about a $450 subscription. I have opted only to get one, but I do have an admin assistant who uses it as well. Unfortunately, we both can't be in there at the same time. So we coordinate that way. So we save not it's a ton of money, but it's close, $450. Like I said about the flag holders, 200 of that we would like to, 500 for the markers and 200 for the costs of our flags and things like that. As I said, 75% gets reimbursed from the state every month. We get that back once a year. There's usually a lag time from what we pay out until what we see come back to the town. Years ago in 2010, I was also able to establish a gift account, which is separate from what we can do for our Mass General Law, Chapter 115 veterans that are 200% or below the poverty level to help them through the state. This is a fund that was established years ago that we can help veterans that just are above that threshold. And what we do is I keep on hand Stop and Shop gift cards because Stop and Shop, we can either get groceries or we can get gas. We've paid fuel bills for people. We've paid for prescriptions. We've made car payments. But being the gatekeeper of that account, I always make sure that the veteran is in need. I make them provide me with a copy of their DD 214, which is proof of service, and also show me a bank statement that there's a need. I mean, I have had people before asking for money out of the gift account. They bring me their bank statement and they're sitting on 30,000. Can't really justify that. There's so many in need out there. So that's a little bit about our gift account. And then the other comments and things like that are just various things that we do in our job on a daily basis. Basically anything with the word veteran in it. If we don't know the answer, we'll get you the answer. We don't ever have a veteran who leaves our office that doesn't feel satisfied. Sometimes you just can't please everybody, but 9 times out of 10, I think we have a very good reputation in Plymouth. My office, myself, I've been awarded Veteran Service Officer of the Year, and I was only on the job for less than a year, probably 6 to 8 months when I got that award out of 350 VSOs in the state. Since that time, I was awarded District Director for the work I also do with Plimpton, Kingston, and Carver. And my admin assistant was also awarded Admin Assistant of the Year. So we feel pretty proud of our accomplishments.
That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Are the number of veterans in town, is that number dwindling?
It is.
And
It is.
is it dwindling quickly or slowly?
Well, mostly, you know, up until now, it was our World War II veterans. Now we're seeing our Vietnam veterans suffering a lot with that Agent Orange exposure. It's a hideous toxin, and it does terrible things to people. So yes, unfortunately,
So a lot of veterans are still seeking out your services.
absolutely. And I'll just give you, sorry, one quick number is when I started the job in way back when, the federal money coming into the town of Plymouth was about 950,000. But by my filing the VA's comps and pens, we've got it well into the millions. So that takes the burden off the town for putting people on Chapter 115, but giving those veterans that have served and served honorably the benefits that they truly deserve. So yeah, I feel very proud of that accomplishment.
Great, thank you.
I'm sorry, sir, I know you had a question.
I was waiting for my chair to. Kind of piggybacking on your comment, actually. One of the things I like to see is a high number there on the veterans benefits, because I know it's reimbursed by the state. It means our veterans are getting what they deserve.
Yes, sir.
What they're doing. How many veterans are you currently helping right now in terms of regular people that come in on a regular basis?
Our monthly one through the state, we've got about probably 80 people. We have what we call their monthly benefit, and right now the average for January was about 24,500 on a monthly. That's just the stipend that each veteran gets. It totals that amount. The other thing that is a monthly reoccurrence for us is we have what we call our Blue Cross plan, where we put our veterans that we can't quite trust them to make that payment every month, so we do it for them. That's about 1,025. So over the next 5 months, those numbers are about 122,500 and 5,100 for our Blue Cross. Right now, my veterans account sits at 2,400, 247, 528.
Bless you.
Bless you. And if I extrapolate that number out for the things I know we're gonna be paying for, it's about 127,000, leaving a balance of about 119,000. And out of that, we pay approximately 7,000 a month, different things. People can bring in prescriptions, they can get dental care, we can pay for hearing aids. So depending, we don't have a crystal ball what's gonna come in, but I did an average of about 7,000 a month. That's gonna be 35,000 for the next 5 months. So that'll leave us, after we encumber 10,000 for our next year, that'll leave us about 74,000, give or take.
Are you seeing a large amount of people, younger people from Afghanistan and Iraq?
They come in and they file for their VA benefits, but they're not looking mostly for the Chapter 115 help. They're
Right.
mostly doing their federal benefits, which, you know, the town has, you know, that's no burden on the town other than to have the property tax exemption.
Right. Yeah. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Very nice. Tell me about TRICARE and TRICARE for Life.
Okay, TRICARE and TRICARE for Life. TRICARE for Life is when a veteran turns 65. They're required to take Medicare in order to keep that TRICARE for Life. TRICARE for Life is a benefit that is only to veterans that have retired 20 years or more, medically retired. That's not a veteran. I'm a 13-year Navy veteran. That is not something I am entitled to.
Right.
So that's the difference of TRICARE.
But you do, for the people that are retired,
Them,
because it's really a great plan.
yes, it is a great plan, and I help them segue from TRICARE to the TRICARE for Life. Because at that point, they have to provide their Medicare card to them, because Medicare is the first payer.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Other questions?
I think I just need clarification from my little notes I got going on.
Sure.
You said a lot of numbers just then. So in summary, you said $7,000 per month per each person? Or
No.
Help me just
So when,
summarize this.
so when I do, so say I have 80 veterans, all with different things that we pay for. So the average cost per month, I took the January total, is about 24,500. The 7,000 that I was talking about is the Blue Cross premium that we pay for our group plan. That's about 1,025. So I times that out by 5. So we had the 5,100, but the 7,000 is things that we can't predict. Somebody comes in with prescriptions, somebody comes in with eyeglasses. Unfortunately, we have indigent veterans that need to be buried, and we just never know when that's gonna happen. So I'm averaging about 7,000 a month on unknown
Okay,
right now.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd just like to add the things that the heart and soul of HHS is not saying is she is working actively with veteran Volunteers of America who just came into Plymouth to kind of look at younger veterans and their needs and see how we can help them.
Absolutely.
Roxanne was instrumental in bringing the HERO Act to our attention with Select Board Golden was instrumental in, I think, presenting to you last week. And so we're looking at ways in which we can engage other veterans, and she's doing a lot of outreach in that capacity.
Absolutely.
So
Last call for questions? Motion, please.
Move to approve the veterinary services fiscal year 2026 budget.
Second.
Mr. Howard votes yes. Ms. O'Connor?
Yeah.
Mr. Pizarro?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Enthusiastic, yes.
Ms. Tompkins?
Yes.
And Mr. Chadell?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Roxanne.
guys.
Thank
Thank you all
you.
for your time this
you.
afternoon.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Yeah.
Give us just a second. We've got to find our place in the
She's
book.
excited.
Disabilities.
Yes. Last year I was so new, I forgot them, remember, Bruce? Like, I have to do this.
Oversee quite a lot.
Oh, you were so gracious.
That's good. Usually I'm freaking out over.
No, you guys were like, it's okay, relax. Thank you.
How much of a budget?
The whopping.
I'm just gonna have a question.
Emily? Emily.
I'm next.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the chance to be here. I'm Emily Wilson, Assistant Commissioner of HHS, as Michelle mentioned, and I'm the town liaison to the Plymouth Commission on Disabilities. So I'm not an appointed member of the commission. I am our town staffer to the commission. As some of you may know, the Plymouth Commission on Disabilities serves as a resource to our community to address accessibility, equal rights, and other issues of concern to people living with disabilities. We are created under Mass law. Communities that elect to have a commission follow Chapter 40, Section 8J. Our current commission here in Plymouth is a 5-member board, all volunteers, staffed by myself as part of my role, and the members are all appointed by the Select Board. The commission is part of our newly formed Department of Health and Human Services, and our current chair is Paul McGee, who serves as the chair to the commission. We don't have a typical department or division budget, as you've seen, as just commented. We are a small but mighty commission that serves really important functions to people living with disabilities here in town. So we do have funding allocated in the amount of $350. That again is being proposed for this year, and that would include things like trainings or meetings for the commission, any type of sundry supplies that they might need to share outreach on a program, for example, that they want to get the word out about. We do receive funding through a separate mechanism. So all commissions that were created by the state receive approximately 50% of revenue that's collected through parking fees for parking violations. So when someone parks wrongly, incorrectly in an accessible parking spot that shouldn't be there, half of that revenue is collected through Park Plymouth and is remitted to the town, which then goes into the Plymouth Commission on Disabilities Fund. And those funds are then used to distribute grants that will benefit people in the community, to municipal departments and community-based organizations, as well as scholarships for Plymouth High School students who are graduates of Plymouth High Schools.
So is that fund a revolving fund? Is it set up as a?
To my knowledge, it is not considered a revolving fund.
Any concern with the current federal administration that there'll be pressure to disband this organization?
There is always concern right now when change is occurring. We've received no formal or informal concern notification about that happening, but
And this.
our eyes are on it,
Okay,
we're
I-
making sure that
I
we stay on top
Will
of
tell you the
what's
same thing I
happening.
told my sister relative to her grants.
Everyone,
Be prepared if things change.
Yep.
Okay,
you got that right.
other questions? Go ahead.
Just a quick one. Is this enough to serve the people with disabilities in the town?
Thank you. That's a great question. I do really appreciate that. I will just add to your question to give a little bit of context. As Michelle mentioned, we're, very newly created department. I came on my role a year ago last year as assistant commissioner, and being town liaison to the commission is part of that. I think previously, because of the evolution of the commission, they actually weren't fully aware that they had funds that were available to them to cover administrative and sundry expenses. So since I have become more familiar with the budget landscape, we have had that discussion. We've talked about that the funds are proposed in this amount for this coming fiscal year, and they are very excited to know that they do have some room for that type of spending. I think there were no concerns raised at our last couple of meetings where we discussed this in terms of whether this is enough or not. So I think very prudently and in a very fiscally responsible manner, they are looking at this as an opportunity to see what they can do with these funds to make sure that they're doing as much outreach and awareness and visibility as they can within the town. And then if there is some kind of request in the future, then they would have that discussion as a commission, and of course bring it to future proposed budget discussions. I will also just reiterate too that as we are created under mass law, these funds that are in the parking violations account have restricted uses that serve directly people with disabilities in the town. So I can give you some examples. In addition to the high school scholarships that are funded every year, this past fiscal year, grant requests were approved for ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act related improvements, for the Center for Active Living, also for a wheelchair accessible swing that was added in Nelson Park and partially funded through the commission, and also wheelchairs that were added to the Pilgrim Hall Museum. So those are just some examples of requests that the commission receives and funds in order to benefit people with disabilities in town.
Do we know how much is in that fund right now?
We do.
Yes, we currently have approximately $84,515 at most recent check. And that will be increasing as we receive those parking violations every quarter. So we will be expecting a new injection of funds as of March 1st.
So that's really where the monies help our community
That's
in
right.
that fund. This is more administrative
Yeah.
support.
Thank you.
And just out of curiosity, about how much is generated from do you know, on an annual basis?
It really varies depending
Yeah.
upon, I think
Who's obeying the law and who's
Right,
not,
exactly.
right?
it's sort of a.
It's robustly disobeyed right
Right.
now, but yeah.
Exactly. So it's a great question. It does vary, I think,
Yeah.
depending seasonally as
Sure.
well. As sometimes unfortunately people maybe feel a little bit desperate and see if they can get away with it in the
Right.
summer months when there's less parking.
Right.
So yeah, it's a great question. It does vary.
I've asked this of two other department managers, so I'll ask you again, ask you as well.
Yes.
As your assistant commissioner, does Emily have direct management responsibility for any of the divisions?
Yes, she
in-
does.
She does.
All of them. Yes. She is second in line, so.
Well, I would encourage you to give her direct responsibility for one or more divisions so that, you know, when the time comes, she's has the hands-on experience to lead the department.
Yes, that
Okay.
is succession planning at its finest, and that
Yeah.
is our plan, and she has all of the responsibilities that I have, she has as well.
Okay.
She's privileged too. So if I'm away for a week on vacation, she has all full responsibility of managing the
Okay.
department.
It's good to have
Yes.
sole responsibility at times as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Bruce.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks, Emily. Any other questions for Emily? All right, I'll accept a motion at this time.
I motion to approve the disability budget for fiscal year 2020.
I'll second that.
Mr. Howard votes yes. Ms. O'Connor? Mr. Pizarro?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Tompkins?
Yes.
And Mr. Trudell?
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
So-
Not going in.
We've almost caught up.
Let's go.
Okay, we are on Center for Active Living. Great.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Caitlin Korea. I'm the Assistant Director at the Center for Active Living, also known as CAL. We are a senior center. We service seniors 55 plus. There's 42% of Plymouth are seniors. That's an increase from last year's memo. It was 40% last year. So we're increasing every year. Just some of the things that we have going on. We have over 300 programs, services, and events to meet the diverse interests of older adults, which include on-site senior college with BSU. We have 30 plus health, fitness, and wellness programs. We have art programs, theater, chorus, photography, and dance. We have the Cal Express transportation program, which is with GATRA. And we also have pro bono services such as AARP, tax prep, and Shine counseling. So in FY 26, we have a level service general budget. The only thing that we are asking for is to fill the director position, which went sort of vacant when Michelle took this position. She's still at Cal. She still helps us. So we're hoping to fill that position so she can focus mainly on HHS and the other departments as well. We also had a huge increase in our budget. Decrease, sorry. $25,000 to our nutrition budget. That is for our Cal Cafe. When we created the Cal Cafe in 2021, we made an agreement with Lynn Barrett that they would support us for a few years till we could get off our feet, and then we would be on our own. We have a revolving account that we've been building up. So in FY 26, we will start utilizing that revolving account, which has about $130,000 in it right now. So we are succeeded.
So that revolving account will be able to handle the influx and of,
Supplies and things like that. It doesn't pay salaries. The town will still pay the salary.
right.
But we won't have a budget in the general fund anymore to support the cafe.
And is there a spending limit associated with that revolving account?
Yes, I think we increased it this year for that, well, in FY 26 for that reason.
I don't remember if that's in this.
Yes, so we increased it to $100,000. It was at 30 because we weren't spending anything out of it. But now we're increasing.
Now we're gonna, so it's at 100.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Questions? Go ahead.
typical question for me, is on the meetings, education and training line, budgeting $4,000. And as of December, we've only spent $227. So is there a plan for the rest of the year to spend?
Yes, and typically we go to an MCOA conference in October. This year, 5 of us went and we were actually able to use a grant to fund that. So that's why it's low for this year, but usually we spend all of it.
Yeah, there'll be spring educational programs that the staff also participate in. We have 2 social outreach workers there, so they do continuing education and services such as that. Sure.
So I had a question about the postage. It looks like year to date, you've spent the budgeted amount on postage.
Yeah, so we get 14,000 in July. I deposit 7,000 into the account at the post office, and then we use that. And once that dwindles down, I do the other 7.
Okay, so it's the other 7,000 has been
Yeah, I just did it like.
paid to the,
Yeah,
Prepaid.
yeah.
it's prepaid. Yep, great, thank you. Other questions? Lorenzo?
Yes, through the chair. Thank you for your presentation. The CAL is a worthy service, clearly. I just wanted, last year I asked for similar question, but our demographics from the age cohort that you're looking at has been typically increasing in Plymouth proper in general. But do you have any statistics on the last year over year? Has there been an increase in people coming through the doors? And what percentage is that, if you have that at your fingertips?
I don't quite have a percentage. I know that last year it was about 12,000 we had in our system, and this year we have about almost 15.
Okay, so that if you do the simple math, that's quite a double-digit increase, and you're only asking for 2.3% on the budget, so you're doing something good there.
Yes.
All right, so thank you. Congratulations to you
you.
both.
Thank you.
So tell us about hiring a new director.
So it's important, right? Given the number of seniors and giving the programming and the growth and the potential growth as well. So if approved, we would look to hire a director in July, once the new fiscal year moves through, and we would certainly, that would allow, I've been acting as director for 2 years while simultaneously acting as the new HHS commissioner, and proudly and happily, but it's time to give the growth, and our seniors are the bulk of our community, and the Cal COA deserves a director that can give it 100% of its attention. It's Lorenzo, thank you for that, for those, kind words, but certainly it really needs somebody qualified, full-time, ready to go. While I don't necessarily want to give up my beautiful office, it's important that somebody take the helm, qualified, caring, responsible, intelligent, and we will look for all of those things when it comes to that.
Other questions? Then I'll accept a motion.
I motion to approve the Center for Active Living fiscal 2026.
I'll second that.
Mr. Howard votes yes. Ms. O'Connor?
Yeah.
Mr. Pizarro?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Tompkins?
Yes.
And Mr. Trudell?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Caitlin. Have a good day.
Wow, not only did,
Are we ahead now?
we're ahead now by a lot.
We're moving.
Oh, let's keep it up.
Except that we don't, is Maureen,
She should be
we're
here.
really early, so,
Oh, so
so she may not be here. Why don't we take a break for 10 minutes? So about,
You could probably have Ann come up to move her out of place,
um,
because she's in the building.
so we may be running ahead.
Do you want to break, or would you like me to?
No,
call?
I'd like to take a 10-minute break
Okay.
and then
Okay.
we'll start up about
Yep.
20 after.
Wonderful.
Did the halftime show start now?
Yeah. So the dancing cats. if you
Is
will,
that the
please.
Philly KC halftime show?
Yeah, no, I,
I just do a little intro.
We'll talk to Jenny on the department. Okay.
everyone set? Okay. Good. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Maureen Coleman. I'm the acting library director at the library.
Great.
Can I tell you a little more?
Tell me a little bit about.
So
library, what
our,
you do.
yes, so our focus at the library is on lifelong learning, and we do that through having a robust collection and doing programming and partnering with community organizations. We've had some significant highlights this year. We had the highest number of patron visits that we've had since 2016. We had 4,000 new library card signups and 389,000 circulation of materials, which is up by 11%. We had 866 events with almost 22,000 attendees, which is also up by about 11%. We had things that are ongoing that are highlights at the library is our little free pantry, which we use area food distribution centers to stock our pantry, and that has food and hygiene stuff for people who are in need. We have our community garden, which has been very successful in producing garden things. We use the vegetables and herbs from there. We give that out to the public as well. We include that in the little free pantry when we have fresh produce. We started and have been maintaining a recovery corner at the library, which has been really awesome. So we have harm reduction materials and information on treatment centers, as well as information for kids and teens and guardians, everybody of all walks of life. I actually just got back from a conference in Phoenix where I did a presentation on our recovery corner, which is now kind of a national model. I'll be having a meeting with someone from the Baltimore Public Library soon to talk about how we established ours and how we keep it going. Our literacy program has had the highest number of enrollees that they've ever had before, which is great. They also added 2 ESL classes this year, in addition to what they were already doing. Our community partnerships, we've really been leaning into those as far as creating new ones and reestablishing ones that we currently have. So that's been great. Our community partners, for example, help us stock the recovery corner. That initiative has cost us $0, which is great. And we had some new events that were pretty cool. So we had a local author book fair. It was the first one we'd done. So we had over 20 local authors come, and there were about 150 to 175 people from the community who attended. One of the great things that came out of that was not just the community members being introduced to these local authors, but the local authors being introduced to one another. So there's been some other programs that have sprung from that, and great feedback and good relationships for the local authors amongst themselves, which is always awesome. We also did a We Remember, We Recover event, which was an overdose awareness event, and it highlighted
not just the struggles of people suffering from substance use disorder, but also focusing on the positive of people who recover. We had a bunch of local community organizations come. We had crafts and a bouncy house and all sorts of things for kids. So it was a family-friendly event. So yeah, we've been trying to start some new larger programs to connect the community with our patrons, you know, bring everybody together. And our general numbers are going up.
You could talk about some of the increases in the budget.
Yeah, so the increases on our end were our books and periodicals increases happened because we have increased use of our electronic resources. Those are pay by use kind of models, so those are getting, as we're seeing increased number of use, the cost is also increasing. Library supplies, there was a slight bump. We're getting more materials for our community garden to make sure that it continues to produce the things it has been. Our dues and memberships line increased because the library network were a part of the Old Colony Library Network. Their overall cost increased. We had some decreases. We moved 2 maintenance contracts for copiers to IT and 2 AED machines to DPW. We decreased the amount of postage because we're transitioning to more email blasts versus physical mailings. Our technical services supplies, we started incorporating some processing through the book vendors, so that's helped to decrease some costs on our end. And our public supplies, we moved 2 public printers to IT, and we're getting our toner through them as well, so that was a decrease.
Go ahead.
I'm just looking at the R&M computer equipment line. It seems to have gone up almost 30%. What's going on?
Yeah,
with that?
despite the fact that you've moved some of the equipment to IT.
Yeah.
Do you see the R&M line?
I know there was an economic increase, but I'm not, I'd have to get back to you about why that number was so significantly higher.
So wait, R&M equipment.
Let me look to see if
Oh, the computer equipment you're
Going up
referring to?
15
The computer
15,000.
equipment, not the R&M
So
equipment.
7 to
R&M
10%
computer
is
equipment.
is typical, but
yeah.
this is beyond
It's a
that.
pretty big step.
Are you retooling like
Where are we?
R&M equipment.
Yeah.
So we, it went from,
But that's year to date so far.
so the budget was 53
Mhm.
and we're
Asking
requesting
for
68.
68.
So do you have a backup for that? And the rationale for that, was that linked to contracts or what line does that cover? The computer equipment.
Oh.
Have that in the original notes. And then computer equipment, so let's see, everything's the same. Let's see where we landed. Two, four. I'm looking at the breakdown and there, I wonder if that's a.
I think it might
typo.
be a misprint
because
because
if you look
nothing
at,
really
there's nothing will
changed.
change in the columns.
When you look
on the
at the
breakdown.
budget detail report,
Mhm.
every amount is the same.
Yeah, and we're
No,
not planning any upgrades. I think that might be.
Could you look into that?
I
please?
absolutely,
Yes, we
will.
know,
Yeah,
'cause-
absolutely. Cause yeah, that didn't stick out to
No,
me as there
no,
was a big
And there
increase in
isn't any
that, so.
change, yeah.
no,
Okay.
we have to look at that.
You said that circulation volume was up 11%. I know that my wife and I account for 10%. We recently found the library and have been enjoying the services there, so thank you.
I thought it was interesting to note, I was looking at the breakdown between electronic resources and print materials. It's about a 70-30 split right now. With 30% being electronic resources. So it's interesting to see that number moving up. And I think that's also helps with our e-card numbers because there's a lot of people accessing library materials, from home, which is awesome.
It is. And can you talk about the restoration of the technical services page?
I can. That was something we were requesting. There previously were 3-page positions. The technical services page, works in our technical services department. They would help with processing materials and discarding of materials and mending for some of our items. So that position, had been put on hold, so we were looking to restore that position. So it helps cut costs on like whether we need to repurchase items, making sure that discard schedules stay on track and.
Just for clarification, there were three positions, but you had 2, so you want to have that third one again. Is that-
No, the 3-page positions, are all vacant right now. We were seeking to restore one of them.
So will that show up under,
That was not part of the select board approved,
did they not approve that?
4,959.
Yeah, they did. That was, not great.
Right, they did not approve that.
They were looking at the department in terms of a whole and where the need was for filling either vacancies where the pages had not been brought back for several years, looking at a fiscal amount to go towards, for example, needing a Cal director, and the money's going there. In terms of, so it wasn't about saying that they specifically were eliminating that, but just the monies that were given to the department in terms of being able to fill positions, just went to the positions that needed the most filling, if that makes sense.
And vacation earned buyback, jumped quite a bit in the 26 budget.
Those would be contractual.
Yeah, those are.
Contractual changes.
Go ahead.
As succession planning seems to be important to Bruce, I'm interested in professional development, so the meetings, education and training line. We have asked for $10,000, but year to date we have 0. So is there a plan or what would we like to do? Or maybe that was.
Has the money been spent this year?
It
and
says 0.
It said 0.
So, part of that, I believe, is our, we have some staff that is enrolled in classes. So we have 2 staff members that are enrolled in their master's program. We also have a state, library conference coming up in May that we try to send some staff to as well. So we just haven't gotten to the spending of it, but it will be
Excellent.
Excellent. That's, the education and training
Yeah.
side. Yep.
Mhm.
Spring, it's always
Yes.
seems to be a
Yeah.
lot of spring. People don't
Spring.
venture in the winter, right?
Yeah. But it is nice that we have 2 staff members that are pursuing their library degrees. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I'm sorry, just another point of clarification. So on the R&M equipment where we're thinking there might be a typo, I think we need clarification there. Are we looking at potentially the wrong number or like, I think that's important for us to know before we.
It looks like it's, I mean, I have it in the original, but so what are you saying?
Just off the top of my head, and I don't want to speak for you, Maureen, if you want to add to this, but just in terms of looking at the variance, and looking at what was the revised in the original budgets from 2025, and then what was approved by the select board, just looking at that 28.3% that seems greater than the percentage of what the increase I'm seeing is. So if you take, if you take that 28.3% of the 68,000 roughly figure, that would be $19,295. Which is, you know, 4,000 more than the dollar amount of variance given. So I'm just looking at the math really quick with what I have in front of me, and it does look like that's a little off. I'm not sure what's behind that. I'm not sure what's, you know, causing that, but just looking at those figures across the bottom, I can already see that there's a discrepancy.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
So looking at the detail of R&M computer equipment, it looks like it totals up to close to the 68,000. So, so I'm not sure the 68,000 is wrong, but I'd like to know why it's up 15,000 from this year. It just is it's a huge jump. And, you know, look at the two big items, the public computer managed services for 13,000. Public computer upgrades, so that's 9,000, and then is it my library annual subscription
Yeah,
at 9,100? I mean, those are the big ticket items. Have those changed?
My Libra was an app that we added, that may have been FY 25 that was added, might be currently happening. So that should not affect that. I'll have to look more into the total breakdown of that R&M equipment. I don't want to speak out of turn and give you incorrect information.
Yeah, it looks like the numbers line up, so I think what we're interested in is just where's the difference and where's that
We
investment?
need to.
Yeah, I will look more into that and get back to you all today.
I apologize. I'm not sure.
No, that's
how we
fine. That's
missed that.
fine.
Yeah.
Why we're doing it.
Yep,
Mhm.
absolutely. And it was discussed clearly through the process. So there's got to be a conversation that was had about it. I don't think it would have made it
Right.
through our
So,
processing, but I'm looking at my notes and trying to
maybe
determine.
when we're done with you here, you could
Please.
Yes,
take a
I'll go
look
back
at
to
it
the
and
library
get
and,
get back to Michelle and let her know.
yeah,
That would be
absolutely.
wonderful. Thank you.
Hopefully we can finalize.
Move forward with that.
Went down 10% though.
What's that?
The repair and maintain equipment went down
Yes.
10.6.
Good, yeah.
Might be some that got moved. So you just want to look into the two of those.
Well, we talked about some of the equipment being transferred to IT,
Mhm.
so
This is just repair and maintain equipment, it may be subscriptions or it's gone down, so.
Yeah, I'll have to look more
Interesting
into it and
thing
get
is-
back to you.
The preliminary sheet doesn't really have the answers, but the expense report does. I mean, it all does add up to that number.
Yeah.
Yeah, the question is what changed from 25 to 26?
Exactly, that's not.
That drove that.
And
that
just,
It is.
change.
No, I mean, I'll
We have
have
to
to,
figure it out.
and just to clarify this percentage variance on the bottom right, so I'm, again, just doing some quick math here, but it would actually, if we're looking at the 25 versus proposed 26, it would actually be a 22% increase roughly. That's what I'm seeing. Unless I'm just saying that wrong, but that's
Does it
just,
move to
that's
the second page though? It doesn't.
All right, well,
Yeah.
let's take that offline and come
Okay.
back to us.
Yep.
Other questions? We'll table the vote.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a definition if you could. Under, other expenses, statement, increased usage of electronic collection, pay per use. Could you help me understand how that?
so the increase in electronic collection, so we have more people that are doing ebooks. There's also magazines that are available virtually. So those sort of audiobooks, ebooks that are available, without the physical print copies, those numbers are increasing.
So are you paying the publisher every time Somebody goes in and borrows a book.
So it depends on what, we have Hoopla and Libby. Some of them are pay per use, some you get for a certain amount of time. So each one's a little bit different. But yeah, that's kind of like a bigger issue in the library field that they're trying to get those costs under
Just trying to.
under
understand.
wraps.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
because it seems as though as use is increasing, so is cost, unfortunately. So.
So I just wanted to take a quick look at the departmental equipment.
So that was down from the previous fiscal year. There were some one-time costs that were from this current fiscal year, such as buying a new printer for our children's department that's not included in next year. The items we have on there, some of them are for archival materials that support our history room. We are looking to get a book drop for our youth department, just because the volume of people that come in there, and there's limited staff in there to keep up with the returns that are coming in, like after story times and what have you. The whiteboard.
So that would be in
In the library.
inside.
Yeah, yeah.
So it would be a new Dropbox.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the whiteboards and the storage cabinets are actually locked storage cabinets, so those are for our literacy department. The storage cabinets in particular, they're hoping to put their AV equipment, like their laptops and iPads in those, so that, when classes aren't in session, that those materials aren't just laying around.
Good. Okay, so
I'll motion to table again.
we'll,
Second that.
Yeah.
all right, so we'll just wait and hopefully we can close on this before Michelle leaves us.
Yes,
Yes.
that is,
Okay.
we
I
will.
Go
And,
do
and
that.
I think just for clarity, I think our concern, I mean, if the numbers need to be corrected, wonderful, let's do that. But I think our bigger concern is just looking at what that investment is.
Of course.
Yeah, what
Makes
changed?
perfect sense.
Yeah,
Yes.
changes.
Yeah.
So you don't want to do a formal tabling of this, we're just gonna let it
We're
slide.
just gonna let it, we're gonna
Okay.
defer the vote until,
Computer equipment,
Okay.
it's gotta be something.
that's okay.
that we're just not-
Okay, I will go get that information.
Thank you, Maureen.
so we are still early for recreation.
She should be here, I told her. Let's see.
Karen, I did, I changed her too. Yeah.
Bruce, I'm sorry, I didn't quite get your last question. About expense.
She just walked through the department expenses. Was that what I was looking at?
Is that
So-
one line or?
So this is the detail. So this is under department equipment. And it shows up as a single line here.
Oh.
So the only note here was that the storage cabinets can be locked. The secure electronic.
There she is, I hear her.
So Michelle,
I'm coming.
are you gonna get an office in town hall or
Well,
are they gonna kick you out of the,
you didn't see the budget for the new HHS building?
yeah, right?
Don't do that.
Teasing. People at home. No, that would be the goal, to be able to transition myself and any other staff that.
So where would you land, do you know?
know.
How are you?
I've been talking to, laying the groundwork to say, please find us rental space.
Well, you know,
The town hall would be the goal. It just makes sense. There's so many of our divisions in town hall and it's, running back and forth.
Hi,
Thank you.
Hi.
Head of the curve.
Yes, hi, everyone. I'm Ann Sluther. I'm the recreation director here for the town. I am in my 17th year with the town, so I have been here quite a while. Director more or less in like the last 7 to 8 years. Before that, I was a programmer. So, but yeah, so that's a little bit about myself. In our, you guys have our subcommittee budget report.
Tell them a little bit about your department.
Sure,
The bells and
so,
whistles.
yeah, so recreation oversees the scheduling of all the fields in town. We are responsible for all the seasonal hiring for the lifeguards, parking attendants, supervisor over at all the beaches. And then we teach a bunch of programs and offer a bunch of programs for anywhere from 2-year-olds all the way up to more of the active older adults. For recreation programming, STEM classes, soccer classes, you name it. Pickleball is a big one. We have 3 other full-time staff besides myself in the recreation office. 2 of those are fully out of my recreation revolving account along with their benefits. And then I have Memorial Hall is also under recreation. And Joe is 100% out of Memorial Hall revolving. So we also oversee Memorial Hall. We run a lot of our programs over at the hall. And then obviously the concerts that are there. We're more of the rental facility for the concerts. We're not the actual promoter. So we're not the ones bringing in the acts. We're simply just renting the facility to the acts and to the companies that want to bring in the acts. So that's a little bit about recreation. And you'll see, like in my subcommittee report, my budget summary, this is our operating and not our revolving. That was given to you guys separately, so you can kind of see what comes out of our revolving account, how we operate that. All of our programs and activities are self-sustaining, which means that any of the revenue that we bring in for our recreation programs goes into the recreation revolving account, and we pay out any class fees and everything like that out of that account. So
Currently doing a master plan, which is exciting.
yeah, so we just signed the contract for that. We have our first upcoming meeting for the Forges and Hedges Master Plan this Thursday. So we're kicking that off this Thursday with our internal meeting, and then Activitas was the company that we hired for it. They're then gonna reach out to the community and do community engagement surveys. They're gonna reach out to the youth leagues in town. And a bunch of different groups around town to see what their interests are in the master plan, and what they would like to see in all the complexes. So, and yeah, and that'll be a big one, because we really would like to see some increase in Forges in terms of, field space and things like that. We need more rectangular fields here in town, for some of the activities that we have going on. So, yeah.
Go ahead. First of all, before I ask my question, I just want to say that I learned pickleball through the recreation department.
Oh, you did?
And now I play everywhere and love it. And
Yeah.
Forges was where I learned, because that's where you guys do your structure.
Yeah.
So,
Amazing.
do a great job at keeping
Thank
it
you.
reasonable
Yeah,
and fun and everything else. I appreciate it.
sure. Thank you.
The technical services line kind of stuck out to me. It's gone up 23%. What's going on with that?
So that's our website hosting. And so as we increase our registration, and if we increase registration fees, it's all based off of a like growing scale for revenue. So the more revenue that we bring in, if we raise our class fees, that also goes up as well. So that is hosting our website. So any of the class program fees, any of the field scheduling, any of the field listings, that's why that's going up. So the more revenue we bring in, the higher it goes up.
So it's a good thing.
Yeah,
It's a good thing.
Okay.
yep.
Oh, are we making money on that website at all? Is there any advertising on it or anything like that?
Not, no, it's, well, so we make the money off of, that's where everybody goes to register for the
Right.
program. So we need it to host our registration for it. We have a little bit of sponsorship, like if somebody decides to be a sponsor with us and they're a big sponsor, like Convenient MD. They have a little block at the bottom for being one of our sponsors. They sponsor like our basketball leagues. They sponsor our Great Pumpkin Hunt. So they get a little picture on the bottom of it with their information.
Okay. So
Yeah.
out of the $600,000 here, how much of that comes from these revolving accounts and how much from the general fund?
So the 600,000 you see here from my request is just my operating. So revolving funds is separate. That's an $800,000 request.
So
So this $600,000 is primarily to operate the beaches in town.
Okay.
So you'll see around $400,000 is like seasonal staffing for the lifeguards and the parking attendants and stuff like that.
So actually the budget's about 1.4 million.
Yeah, I mean,
Not
N-
operating.
Yes and not operating, yes and no. You have to think about like the revolving fund is. We only spend what we take in. So like the request is 800,000, but we may only take in 600,000, so we may only spend 575 of that. We try to project what it's going to be, but
It's a guessing game.
it's a guessing game for it with all the registrations. So like operating in tax dollars, the specific is the $600,000. And of that, I would say almost 70% of it is to operate the beaches and pond here in town. We have my 2 full-time salaries or 1.75 full-time salaries that come out of the operations, which is the office manager and 75% of my salary. 25% of my salary also comes out of recreation revolving.
And we really, to Ann's excellent and hard work as of last year, we were really struggling to hire seasonal help because our wages were not competitive whatsoever. So she really rallied to and really advocated for those seasonal wages to be competitive. And this past year, luckily, because that passed, she was able to attract the right amount of seasonal help that we needed to operate those beaches and ponds.
Yeah, especially lifeguards. They're just so hard to come by and they're not pool guards. They have to be able to swim. So
Yep.
a lot of them are swim team
Imagine.
kids,
Yeah.
kids that really can swim being out in the water. So
Yeah.
we're now just below or right at what the DCR is paying this lifeguards to be out there.
Good, thank you.
I was very concerned to read that you're looking to eliminate the lifeguard coverage at White Horse Beach entirely.
Sure.
Has that been widely discussed? Is that gonna present a challenge with the community?
So we discussed it internally, and what we're finding is that with the staffing at White Horse Beach, there's not as many individuals swimming in our swim section. We only patrol a small portion of that beach, which is right off of the Hilltop Avenue area. So when people come in, they go to the right to go into like our guarded zone. So we're only right there. We're finding that not as many individuals are coming into that swim zone because they don't want to follow our rules and because it's challenging to get parking down there now. So I live down there, I frequent down there. I see it as a savings for the town where there's not as many people using that area. It costs about $30,000 just to staff them on weekends alone. So that's what we did last year. We went to weekends only.
I remember.
We didn't have any emergencies during that time. So this year I over the summer and coming into this year, reevaluated it and just find that like it's a savings for the town. What we did instead is we're gonna put a beach supervisor there
We
to
will
kind
have
of
staff.
monitor the area, call if there's any emergencies in terms of illegal behavior or anything like that to the police. But in terms of lifeguards,
Okay, so the
supervisor,
supervisor
Yeah.
will patrol the entire beach?
no, they're
Their
strictly just in that section where it's the public part of it that we have.
Okay, so the rest of the beach is considered private.
It's not I don't wanna quote that it's private, but we only have ever staffed that one section in front of the dunes.
Okay,
So,
so will being a pond person, not
Yeah.
the ocean person.
yeah,
Do you cordon off have you cordoned off the swim area in the past?
We put buoys up, yep. So there's buoys that would go up
So
for
will
swim
that-
zone.
Will those not be put up
They
this
wouldn't
year?
be put up this year, cause
Okay.
it wouldn't be our swim zone, similar to like if you're over on the Flag Rock or Priscilla Beach end, it would just be open.
Okay, and will there be posted that there'll be no lifeguards on duty?
There's already signs up. We leave them up all year long, just so in case anybody's walking down to the beach, they see them. So even if it's 5 o'clock at night and it's after hours, we leave the signs up all the time so that anybody using the beach can see them.
Okay, great.
Yeah, just for them, everybody to see it in case we don't have guards there after 5 o'clock or anything. It's up all the time for people to see.
Piggybacking on that, two questions. When was the last emergency, if you happen to know? I'm assuming you looked at the history.
Yeah, so the last emergency we had in terms of a rescuing was, I could take a look at it. But I wanna say it was back in 2021. Cause it's been at least 2 years since the individual worked for us that
Okay.
made that rescue.
Okay,
And it was kids that were on the far side of the beach coming in to try to swim out to the buoys. They see it as a game, trying to swim out to the
Sure.
buoys. So,
okay.
yeah.
Does removing the lifeguard give us any like liability concerns?
No, cause I
Okay.
asked, as long as the signs are posted,
Okay.
that we don't have any lifeguards on duty, there is no liability for the town, so.
I think they're posted anyways, aren't they?
Yeah, we leave them up everywhere all
Yeah.
the time.
Because
Yeah,
it's not during the week, there are no lifeguards. for
Yeah.
sure, Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a quick question. How much savings is there from that decision?
so it was a $30,000 savings for me to cut the lifeguards from White Horse Beach. And then we added on a supervisor to that, so that was 6,000. So you kind of bring the total down to about, what, $24,000.
$24,000 savings.
Yep.
Emma?
I believe in department equipment, the 23,000, that was the beach vehicle.
Yep.
And it was not approved by the select board. Can you explain?
Yeah, so that was actually funded through ARPA. So that
got
was removed and we did get it and, that was an ARPA funding. So, yep. So technically my budget has gone down this year about $10,000 from last year.
While we're on the budget, I want to better understand salaries and wages. You submitted at 138 and select board approved at 148. Am I reading that correctly? And then you had the new initiative for 26.9 and the select board only approved 6,468. So can you talk about what those differences are? And how you're gonna work with those changes?
Yeah, so the new initiative was to bring in a part-time SEIU position to help us with doing payroll, answering the phones with the 2 master plans that I'm taking on. Would help us with some of the office coverage when our staff is out teaching classes and I'm the only one left in the office. It can sometimes be challenging to try to do like my daily responsibilities and answer the phones and do payroll and stuff like that. So that was what that new initiative position was for. The other $10,000 is we actually had a new staff person start. So the decrease in their salary from the old person to the new person is reflective in that $10,000. So we had an individual leave and we brought in a new person at step 1. So we revised the budget for that $10,000 for that new position.
I'm confused. So would that be? You've got a $10,000 increase over between what was requested and what was approved by the select board.
Oh, so what ended up happening is my request that you see for the 138 included us moving 25% of the recreation office manager into the revolving account. And then having the SEIU position under the operating account. So what they did was they removed the SEIU position altogether, put the 25% back into my operating budget for the office person.
Yep.
So by not getting the office SEIU position.
Yep.
They put that money, you can see it reflected in my revolving fund request. they ended up moving it back. So that's why it's $10,000 more, was because they put the full salary back for the office manager.
Okay. I noted that you included overseeing the after-school program at Manamet Youth Center.
Mhm.
How actively is that after-school program being used?
So we see anywhere to 40 to 55 kids a day using that facility after school. The kids are bused in from Manaman Elementary, Indian Brook, Plymouth South Middle School, and PCIS. So it's also very reasonably priced for what we charge for them to go there. It's about $125 for the entire school year. To put that
Okay.
into perspective, it's about $16 to $32 a day for you to go to the YMCA program.
So it sounds like a lot of parents are using this as
They
a
are, yep, and they
after
really,
school.
right now, they value it, yeah.
Yeah, I know that long ago, I took advantage of the after-school programs and appreciated them as well, so.
Yeah,
that's great.
it's definitely used, and the Manamet and Indian Brook families definitely appreciate having that savings. They take the bus right over from the school, so.
Okay, it looked like there was a discrepancy in the memo on the recreation revolving fund. I thought that the paperwork, indicated. Oh, I guess the difference was between the 815 and the 808. So it says 808 is the
Yeah, so
cap.
808 is what we expect to spend out of that account. 815 would be our projected
The
revenue.
revenue.
Yep,
Right.
so we would have a net revenue of
Okay,
about
I got it.
1,600, yep.
I must have been confused when I read that the first time. Great. Other questions for Ann and recreation? And we covered, there's also a hedges fund.
Yeah,
Well,
hedges a
yeah.
really small fund. That revenue is collected from the beach daily parking there. And also from the half-day playground program registration. So any registrations that we bring in for that program go directly into that account. And then part of that funding for the Forges and Hedges Master Plan came out of that hedges revolving account.
Okay, and is that included in the spending cap of 63,000?
Yeah, that's already been done. We went and did that last year in FY 25. And I asked for an increase in my FY 25 this year to help offset that.
Okay. And you said that Memorial Hall revolving fund is also yours?
Yep, yep.
Ann's revolving all around town. She's got a lot on her plate.
We try to operate as much as possible self-sustaining.
Okay. Great. Any other questions for Ann and recreation? I'll accept the motion at this time.
Is it one motion?
One motion for recreation.
I motion to approve the recreation budget for fiscal year 2020.
I'll second that.
Mr. Howard votes yes. Ms. O'Connor?
Yeah.
Mr. Pizarro?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Tompkins?
Yes.
And Mr. Trudell?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
She was, and she just said, I'm waiting in the town manager's office.
Oh, I
So
was sending you.
you're up.
Bye, good to see you.
Bye.
Bye. Good to see you again.
Thank you,
Good to see
Ann.
Thank you.
So we are getting clarification, but I want detailed clarification. It does seem that, bear with me. It
Well, I
does
would
seem
expect some of those
there's-
costs to go up, but because, I mean, if we looking at like the IT budget, anywhere from 7 to 10 to almost 15% increases is not unusual, but
I think there's 12,000 you'll see because of the contract for. Sitting in the
Yeah.
dark.
Saving.
Hello.
Hi.
hi, Karen,
Hello, Liz, how are you?
doing well.
Good.
I'd apologize for being early, but I'm thrilled that we're running. late.
Right? It's like, and then she was too early because I said, hurry, and then, poor Karen.
It's okay, there's always something to get done, so. all
We
good.
have one member who stepped out for a minute, so let's
Okay.
see if he comes back.
Hi there, Enzo.
Hello, Karen. I don't know if I should recuse myself, but
I don't think so. You're not
No.
an employee, so I think you're
exactly.
good. Yep.
Jeanette, someone's waiting in the waiting room.
Thank
Did Yeah, I wasn't gonna let him in.
No, you shouldn't.
I don't recognize that name.
No.
There was,
Go ahead.
We can start.
yesterday there was some, right? Wasn't there
Mhm.
someone who, okay.
All right.
Zoom bombed.
Karen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, I'm Karen Keen, Director of Public Health, which is part of Health and Human Services. Also under my purview comes Animal Control.
Do you want to take them separately?
Yes,
Bruce?
please.
Yep, 8.
So we'll talk about public health first and then,
Giving your campaign spiel. What you do, what you do, no, what you do, a little bit about your department, division.
Okay, so, public health located downstairs on the first floor here in this building. We have myself, a health agent, Margaret Coe, a health technician, Rachel Milroy. We have Dana Burke, who's our administrative assistant. We also have sort of ad hoc employees through the Public Health Excellence Grant, which is a grant that we share with 5 other communities. We can get into that in a little bit, but we have 2 employees that also are in my office downstairs through that grant, an epidemiologist and what we call a shared service coordinator. So we do all sorts of things downstairs on the first floor. We're responsible for anything that has to do with Title V, which is septic systems, so perk tests, inspections, plan review. We are responsible for permitting all food establishments in the town of Plymouth, of which there are over 200. So that includes restaurants, retail food, mobile food trucks, farmers markets. 1-day permits if someone wants to come, say for the Waterfront Festival and they want to sell whatever they want to sell food. At the Waterfront Festival, we are responsible for making sure that they have all the necessary permits in order to do that. We also are responsible for monitoring any contagious diseases that occur in Plymouth, and that's through epidemiology, which is through the state of Massachusetts for a program called MAVEN, which lists all of our contagious diseases, and we work on putting together sort of the health of Plymouth and what it looks like that we share with not only staff here, but also our board, which brings me to our Board of Health, which we also work with, which is a 5-member select board appointed board, which serves in our regulatory body, where they put together rules and regulations regarding health for the residents and visitors of Plymouth. And there are 5 people that serve on that board with 1 person who serves as an alternate. And also, we are proud to say that we are the first board in Massachusetts to welcome 2 high school students
to our board that serve as student representatives. They are not appointed by the select board. They are sort of appointed by the board through the school system. But they are part of our discussion on everything that we discuss. And they really do bring an incredible insight as to certain public health issues, especially today, you know, vaping, drug use, depression, lack of sleep, all these issues that are impacting our young people. It's really enlightening, I would say, to have those people to join us and to give their perspective. So I could go a little bit into the public health excellence grant, because I think that's important too, because we are the we're the host head community, so to speak. So the other towns are Plymouth, we are the host community, Plimpton, Carver, Wareham, Duxbury, and Kingston. So the state of Massachusetts issues this public health excellence grant, which we administer here in Plymouth. And we collaborate with those other towns to bring shared services to their residents, all of our residents, that our regular budgets would not allow that to do. It would be cost prohibitive in certain cases for these towns to have these types of services. But through this grant, we can expand those levels of service. And we can have, some of those towns never had a public health nurse. Some were way behind on their food inspections. Well, now public health departments are going to be held to a standard because SAFE, SAPHE, has been passed by Governor Healy as setting standards for all public health departments to follow in the state of Massachusetts. There'll be a set of standards that we'll all have to follow. Without this grant, some of these smaller towns, especially Carver and Plimpton, would not meet those standards. And financially, they probably couldn't. But this grant allows those smaller towns, working with some of the bigger towns, to be able to offer these services to their residents, so those levels of excellence can be achieved. So that's sort of
Okay, so you said there are 5 employees under the grant and
Yeah.
an administrator.
2 that are right in our office that have office space downstairs on the first floor. Others work remotely, which is the food inspector, the public health nurse. We had 2 public health nurses. One had since left. We're looking for another one. And then we are also posting a job for something called a health clinician. So we're still
Okay,
looking at that.
and those, so do all of the grant employees service all of the towns under the grant?
Yes, and part of as the host community or lead community, as you would say, part of my responsibility is to make sure that that funding is shared amongst those 6 towns. So every week I look at what those folks have done to make sure that we are having equity across those 6 towns, to make sure that the funds are being used adequately and appropriately.
Appropriately.
Mhm.
Great. Go ahead.
Public health services, I thought was interesting. It looks like a pretty consistent budget. But then your department request was $15,000 and the selectman gave you $69,000.
Right, there's a story behind that.
I'm sure there is.
Yes, we currently contract for our food inspections. We have an outside vendor who does food inspections for the town of Plymouth. I propose that we bring that inside and hire an Plymouth employee to be that food inspector. So that's why it was budgeted under salaries originally instead of under health services. Monies were needed elsewhere, so we reevaluated and have gone back to having the food inspector be contracted. So that figure will go back to the figure you're used to seeing under services, and the salary will be adjusted to show that there will not be a full-time employee in that role.
How about, could we have saved money by doing that? No, it would have cost more money?
Fiscally, no, but certainly we hope to move towards that, because that individual can, supplement some other services needed in public health. But right now, because the service is being conducted and taken care of, by an outside source. It just wasn't a time to move to funding that. But we're not losing any services because of that. But no, it would not save financially at this
Okay.
point, which is
And
why
then
we decided
The
not to.
next line, I'm looking at the 2025 budget of the laboratory services was 9,000. Now it's doubled. Is there a reason for that?
Absolutely, because,
Mm.
our lab service is GNL for the most part. That's the majority of our lab services done for a company called GNL. It's beach testing. All of our beaches that are utilized by our residents and visitors are required to be tested weekly. I don't know what the reason is. You can call it climate change, you can call it sewer runoff. I don't know what it is, but we're getting readings that require additional testing, which requires additional monies. So I am asking for an increase in that, so we have money available when we hit the season again, which will be in May.
Is this something, this is not related to like the bird flu in the ponds and things like that? Is it?
No, it's not. This is actually checking for E. coli to make sure that the water is healthy for our residents and visitors to swim in. The avian flu is something totally different.
This is still mandated, correct, Karen?
This is mandated.
mandated. So
Yeah.
those fees are, they're actual and they're truly projected to.
Years
double.
ago, back in the Wayback Machine, if I was Sherman, I would let you know that the state used to help us with this particular line item. That's no longer. So now it's become an internal budget item, and that's why you're gonna see that on
That's
the,
why everything's like a
yeah.
unfunded mandates.
It's so true.
Right.
It is it's 100% true, and we talk about that all the time. It's like, you have to do this, and then we say, okay, where is the funding coming from? And they're like, you have to do that. So it's like, okay.
Are there many companies that provide that here?
Two, GNL Lab
Okay.
and Eversource, something like that. The pretty much the same. The reason I stick with GNL, to be honest with you, is because, as you can imagine, some of these tests sometimes take place right before a weekend. GL is so responsive that they are able to do that test, so I can actually say, yes, the beach is good to go. Whereas with the other lab, they do great work. I just didn't feel they were quite as responsive. It could be the difference between having a holiday weekend where beaches are open and a holiday weekend where they're not. So I'm going with GNL.
Okay, I just want to go back to the previous discussion around the inspector. So where you had moved the inspector to salary, you had left 15,000.
That's a public health nurse.
Okay, but in the select board budget, you've reinstated the inspector. Is the 15,000
Within that, yes.
part of the is part of the 69?
It is.
Okay.
Yep.
In the narrative, I did see that there was a reference to the Agriculture Commission, a subject close to
Hello.
both of our hearts.
Hello? Yes. Yes, indeed.
Hopes to culminate in a new regulation or bylaw. So my understanding is that there will be no new
That's correct.
regulation or bylaw.
That's correct.
So this is out
So
of
the
date.
action item was actually the movement from public health to the Agricultural Commission.
Okay. The recent implementation of the is it the grease traps?
The grease trap mandate, yep.
Yep. That seemed to have flared up into something more than it probably should have been.
Well, it's interesting, Bruce, you should bring that up because 2.5 years ago, we met with the sewer department, and the sewer department asked for our assistance because they were concerned that they were seeing grease build up in the sewer lines. So they said, you know, downtown in this area, we have a lot of restaurants. Maybe we can go to our restaurants that have always been required to have a grease trap through the plumbing code and also the merged food code. However, we took a long look at it and we said, you know what? We really think they need to improve on what they have. So we said either an automatic internal or a 2,000 gallon external grease trap would be required if you are a food establishment on town sewer in the town of Plymouth. If you are in a septic system and you want to take that risk yourself, by all means. Because what's gonna happen if your septic system fails because you're not treating it appropriately and you're putting too much grease in your septic system, it's gonna go back where it came from. So if you wanna ruin your restaurant by abusing your grease trap, that's up to you. What I can do, however, is protect our sewer system with the restaurants that are on the sewer. So 2.5 years ago, we sent a letter. Then I followed up with 4 more additional letters. Then every time they had a renewal go out during that 2-year period, an additional letter was sent out letting them know that there was a deadline of December 31st, 2024 to do this. And during that time, also in those letters, we told all of the restaurants that if they had concern, they could come to our department. They could seek a variance before our board. I point to Lorenzo because he's actually on the board. They could seek a variance from the board. It could not be for financial reason. You couldn't come to us and say, I can't afford it. That would not be a reason. But some people did come before us to say, I'm in a historic district and I'm gonna have to pull up the sidewalk. I am downtown. I would have to pull up the road and we would have to close that to traffic for days while this gets repaired. So what we did was the sewer department, the water department, the building department, and the public health division looked at the people who wanted to have variances. We give our opinions and then we submit that to the Board of Health, who then looks at the criteria, looks at our determinations and our opinions and our thoughts and what our recommendations are. And then they either decide to issue the variance or not issue the variance.
Were variances issued?
Yes, yes, they have been. And for those reasons that I gave, they didn't want to tear up the road and we agreed. There are some food establishments that really don't fit the criteria of necessarily utilizing grease. There are people who make smoothies in a gym, so when we really looked at that, we thought, well, that doesn't really make much sense. There were those who had already put in, before a letter went out, a 1,500 gallon grease trap. So we allowed them to keep that. And we didn't tell them, dig up your parking lot again, put in a 2,000 because.
So you approved the 15
We did.
in the variance,
Mhm.
1,500.
And again, that's a collaboration between us, sewer, water, and the building department.
So the people that couldn't put an outdoor one, were they ordered to do the indoor
Right,
automatics?
you had a choice. You could do an internal automatic or at least a 2,000 external grease trap.
Mhm.
And we have everyone who we have talked with, we're happy to talk to anybody. What we are concerned with, and we are sending out an additional letter, are the people who haven't reached out to us at all. That have been radio silent. We want to talk to those people. We want to know why, you know what I mean? Have you hesitated for 2.5 years? What is the, I guess, hurdle? How can we help you go over that or hurdle? So we're reaching out again to those folks.
I'd assume the hurdle's money, in one of those, most of the cases.
I would bet it is money, and unfortunately, that's why we said it can't be for a financial reason, but we also thought that a 2.5 year notice would give you time to plan your budget accordingly so that you could do the upgrade.
So any way to do any kind of a loan program like they do with the storage and things like that?
Yeah, I did inquire about that and there isn't. Not right now, there's no funding for that. But I will tell you that the good news is that folks are working with their landlords. For people who rent, we are working with landlords to work different things out. So we're being creative. Because one, we really need this to happen so we don't have a catastrophic failure in our sewer system. Because again, if that happens, if your sewer gets a fogberg, which is a fats, oils, and grease berg, and it really does look like an iceberg, but it's made out of fats, oils, and grease. If your sewer system gets one of those and it hits the Fogberg, it's not gonna stay there. It's gonna go back to where it came from, which means everyone on the sewer system, not just the restaurants, the residences, the business owners, whoever has a toilet or a sink, it's gonna come back, and it's gonna come back into those businesses, and that's not acceptable.
Okay, so thank you for describing. Um,
Almost dinner time.
Yeah.
I
Clean
can-
flushes.
I can talk about
clean
septic
flushes.
systems some more if you really wanna get into the nitty gritty.
FOG,
Yeah.
I think it would be beneficial to work through the communications director
Mhm.
and get an update.
Okay.
Including your efforts to reach out to those you haven't heard from.
Absolutely.
And so it might be, might be a good time to
Mhm.
talk about the progress you've made and the variances granted and the work still to be done on that.
Good idea, Bruce, thank you.
Other questions for public health?
In her
Lorenzo, you're being really quiet on this one.
I do. I just have a comment. I mean, I don't have any
Yes.
questions. I think that the budget for a size of the town that we have is very efficient. Let me put it that way. I think that more resources, because if I have a bias, should be placed more on public health. It's a public good. To that end, Karen has done a tremendous job leading the department. She mentioned the Public Health Excellence Grant that used to be run by Kingston. And now through her efforts and our chair's effort of the board, it's moved under Plymouth, which I always thought it should have been rightly under our purview. So thank you, Karen, for that leadership. But other than that, anytime we can help support public health, it's a worthy cause.
In her spare time, she handles triple E, bird flu, and has taken on the Sharps program over from the fire
Oh,
department.
yeah, which people are loving.
So,
Yeah.
How
seriously,
many locations are there for the Sharps program?
Well, sponsored by the town of Plymouth one, and it's downstairs in my office, but BMZ also has the shops receptacle on Court Street that people could utilize. But town sponsored, it's one and it's in my office. And it's really kind of cool. If you ever want to stop by and look at it, it looks like a mailbox. And you literally pull the lever down like you do in a mailbox and you put your shops in there and then you never have to think about it again. And we also have shops containers for people who would need to put their shops in a container before they put it inside the kiosk. Yeah, so people have used it and it's a lot of positive feedback on it.
So they don't have that in the fire or police departments anymore?
No, the police department still has the drugs. So if you have prescription medicine that you need to get rid of or you don't want anymore, they will have a little kiosk there for prescription drugs, a drug take back program. But the fire department chose to stop their program, and so we brought it to us.
Thank you.
she graciously accepted the challenge of, because Karen never says no when you ask her to do something, and that is the truth.
Other questions? I'll accept a motion.
I make a motion to approve the public health fiscal 2026 budget.
I'll second that.
I vote yes. Ms. O'Connor?
Yeah.
Mr. Pizarro?
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Tompkins?
Yes.
And Mr. Trudell?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, and we are on to animal control. So, Mark, I know that you asked about the location of this division. This was previously under what is now Energy and Environment.
Mhm.
But so the town manager decided to move this to under Health and Human Services.
Yes.
Did you want to ask?
No, I every town I've been involved with has had animal control under the police department.
It originally was,
And it
Yeah.
makes more sense to be under
Yeah.
the police department so that they can have coverage for it and
yeah.
I'm surprised that it's in this.
It originally was the police department, then moved to what was Marine Environmental Affairs, then became Energy and Environmental Affairs. And then it's with us. But in a way, I know exactly what you're saying about, police and filling in. But I do have to say that it's been sort of seamless since they've come over to us. They're a great team. I think that we've really worked well, with what they're doing. I think that they're appreciating, the recognition that maybe they hadn't received before for their hard work. There's only 3 of them, and we are a town that's large in area and has 64 something thousand people. So that leads me to talking a little bit about bird flu, only so I can give them kudos. Because with the 3 of them covering this town during a situation like this, they have not complained once. Now, I know people will say, well, it's their job, they shouldn't complain. But you know what? They are out there and they're collecting dead birds and dead animals, not a sunshine thing to do. But they're doing it because it's a service to our residents. So I really just want to take a minute and just, kind of give them, a little shout out because they really have been working tirelessly. They work 7 days a week. And they really have worked hard with this particular situation.
And if I could just add, in this particular situation, there is this specific example right now of bird flu. It's very stressful to our community, as I'm sure you've seen. This isn't a situation where there's a public health issue and it's kind of invisible or we know of it factually. It's sensitive in nature, and again, it's disturbing to our residents. So response time is critical on a good day, but when somebody is calling, we've set the precedent that if you call and there is a bird that we can, as a town, help remove, we're not gonna wait 3 days for that person to continue to be stressed. They are, to Karen's point, in this specific example, out there 24/7 responding to those calls. So that's the nature of some of the work they do.
And to date, we have been able to, reach out to those residents and obtain those dead, birds and or animals within the same day. So no one has had to wait another day to do that because let's face it, I mean, I don't wanna, I wouldn't wanna walk down my driveway or my backyard and see something that's deceased in my yard. So I just wanna kind of give a shout out.
Or
Does
just
that-
pet
does-
too.
I'm sorry, does that go for other animals as well? Do you
Yes.
try to get the same day service? on
Yeah,
those?
oh,
Even
definitely.
on weekends?
Yes, even on the weekends, especially, any animals we do. In this particular case, we're doing animals as well because we want to make sure that they're collected very quickly because of the situation with avian flu. In other times of non-avian flu, if a songbird flew into your glass door and fell dead onto your deck, we would not send them out. We would ask you to please take a shovel and do something with that or bag it and put it in your trash. But in light of the situation, we are not making a distinction between that right now. If you call us, we're coming to get you.
And are those deceased animals being incinerated?
They are. And I haven't really made that quite public. I've been trying to avoid
We're
that
following procedures.
because it is such a sensitive issue. I mean, I'm assuming that they know that something's happening to them. People that were, when we picked up the dead animals, I'm assuming they think something's happening, but I have not specifically said, and we're taking them to an incinerator in Andover, Massachusetts.
No, and we're public.
Yeah.
Well, I think for those of us who work with town committees, town departments and divisions, it's important to know that the animals are being properly disposed of.
Absolutely.
Following the
And-
protocol
right,
set forth
and we
by the
did,
state.
there were animals that we have gone to that have been sick. that a veterinarian from Mass Wildlife has euthanized those animals on site, so their suffering would not continue.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just curious about the overtime.
Oh, yeah, so am I.
Here we
Let
are.
me tell you. Let me tell you the story about the overtime. So when animal control moved under my purview, of course, I went through everything, right? I took a look at everything, who are they, what do they do, let's look at some financials. And I noticed that there's a trend that they had been underfunded for their overtime for years. Now, in the past, that may not have been such a big issue because they were within these organizations where money was put in exchanged hands, so to speak, as we were closing in on the end of the fiscal cycle. I don't have that luxury.
No.
I make my budget pretty close to the bone, so I don't have that luxury to say, oh, well, if we have some extra overtime, I have plenty to give you. I don't. So in light of that, I took the average that had happened for the past 3 years and I asked for that figure.
Okay,
Just-
so that's good. The actual from 2024 was almost 13,000 or something, so I can see that.
Yep.
you know.
Yeah.
And do you expect it to be close to that same 13,000 range by
Well,
the
I'm
end of
also-
25?
I'm trying to do some other things too, in order to prevent that from happening. One of the things is we did some education with our new dispatching team. So that, instead of calling us out, in the middle of the night because there's a dead animal, I mean, a wild animal, I don't mean someone's dog, I mean, like, you can tell it's a deer or a fox. That maybe, they could just have the police officer move it off the road to the side of the road, and then the animal control officer would pick that up at 7:30. So
Are
we're
those-
asking folks to,
Are those submitted on C-Click Fix?
not usually they're submitted through police, off hours, through the
Yeah.
dispatch team, and then they dispatch it to animal control. So that's actually worked. That's been working for a while now. The other thing that, we looked at is how they're scheduling themselves. So we worked on that and we tweaked that a little bit. So we're doing different things in order to bring the overtime itself in a little bit of more control. But in the meantime, while I still work on this process, I am asking to at least have what they've done in the past.
So out of curiosity, so, the three of them, they work a normal daily shift and then there's on-call hours, or how is that?
Absolutely, they're on call hours. They are not paid for while they're on call.
Okay.
They are paid if they are brought
Okay.
out
Hmm.
for whatever. So that's what I'm trying to avoid. I'm trying to avoid these. So we're working with the dispatchers. It's working well. We are also working with, if someone is arrested and there's an animal in their car, or if someone is arrested in their home or their apartment and there's an animal in their home and apartment, we are asking that they ask that person who's being arrested, if they can speak. I mean, some people are in an accident, you can't speak, that's different. But if they can speak, to let us perhaps contact a friend or a family member who will be willing to come and get the animal, so we don't have to have animal control go out. And of course we will. I mean, that's the bottom line. We're gonna make sure the animal is safe. But there are times when we can sort of take a different path in order to avoid an overtime situation.
Yeah, to be honest, Karen, I think my concern is that year to date, your overtime is already exceeding what was budgeted for fiscal 2025. But it sounds like you're taking the steps to address it. But you're still looking for a substantial increase over what was budgeted. I mean, $10,000 over what
Because-
was budgeted, and yet it sounds like the steps you're taking are appropriate and hopefully working.
They
So
are,
I'm not sure,
but in light of that, I will
not sure
say,
why we should approve a $10,000 increase when you're you're doing what appears to be a great job of managing it.
I would say we're not there yet.
No.
I would say that we're not where I would like it to be in order to say that I don't need the funds.
I think the 14,000 is not enough if you want to be,
Yeah.
for full
Well,
disclosure.
Okay,
What
at
would-
full disclosure, I think the town spends way too much money on overtime. And I think the town manager needs to get a handle on that. But that's not a discussion for this subcommittee.
Correct.
What is an issue here is the $10,000 increase in overtime being requested.
And I'd just like to point out that the figure is not, the request is an increase, but the actual monies spent over the last 3 years are the actual monies spent for overtime. It just was aligned under a different line item, a different methodology prior to it coming to HHS, if that makes sense.
Lorenzo's had his hand up for a while.
Lorenzo?
Yes, through the chair. So been talking about H5N1 avian flu. Couple things around that was disposal and being dispatched, and where were those new demands? I don't know the timing of this budget was created, but those new demands came out. Where do those, what part of the budget does that hit? You know, people, they have to put on their PPE, so to speak, and then they have to go get it disposed. Is it in supplies, materials, and uniform supplies? Is that where all that is being taken from, posted against, so to speak?
Yeah, the PPE is in supplies and materials, and the uniforms are what they wear, like protective shoes, pants, jackets, things like that.
What about the incineration? Is that,
That's being paid for by the state of Massachusetts.
okay, so it's
Oh.
not hitting. Okay.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
I just had a couple things from the overview. I didn't pick up on any horse-related activities in your narrative. So I think it'd be great to include that. You do talk about the 3 animal control officers and what they're doing. But I think there's an opportunity to cite the
Barn inspection.
barn inspections and anything else you do with horses.
Mhm.
And then in the statistics around the variety of calls, I wanted to ask if you get calls about livestock abuse, and are those counted in the numbers that you've got here, or should they be?
We haven't had one.
Okay.
If we did, it would have to be reported through MDR, which is the Massachusetts Department of Agriculture and Resources, because the barn inspections fall under their purview.
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily meaning horses specifically, but any animals that are, any animal complaints that are as a result of abuse.
That would be the
or neglect.
well-being checks, number 3.
Okay, perfect.
That's what that is.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I mean, it's sad, but it's true. It still exists.
Yep.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Just, obviously, we have general, I'm assuming, is a wide variety of things, but it also makes up a big chunk of these calls. Can you give us insight into what the general calls might be?
It could be anything like, what kind of dog food do you think I should give my puppy?
Oh.
Yeah.
What hours are you at?
Is there a
Got it.
dentist that works with dogs?
Got
You know, do you think my cat will like a new cat?
Got
You know, but it's true. I mean,
That'd be
they
great.
need a resource, so
Okay.
who should we call? We'll call animal control. It could be something like, I read somewhere that this dog food is being recalled.
Got it.
You know,
Okay.
something like that,
Yep.
you
Okay.
know, so.
That makes sense. Yep.
Good. Other questions for Karen? All right, I'll accept a motion. Hang on. We do have a revolving account here, right?
Oh, it's, the donations?
Yeah, and I guess I had a question on that. The donations, it says donations are used to pay for medical care and support of shelter animals. And yet, okay, so that is, the donations are being used for the care and welfare of the animals. Is that the animals that are being held by animal
The
control?
animals that are abandoned.
Okay.
To animal control.
Hmm.
Animals that we don't know who they belong to, but they've been sick. It's sad, but I think sometimes people can't afford to take care of their own sick animal. So they leave it at animal control, and in some cases, we humanely euthanize that animal. And the money that takes comes from that fund. People are very generous and they donate money, and that's how we utilize that money.
Okay, is there, do you know the balance of that revolving account at this time?
I think the last time we reported, quarterly to the select board, I think it was a little over $2,000.
Okay, so the $5,000 cap is adequate?
Yes.
Okay.
Unless I'm super generous, but it's history will state that that would be adequate.
Good.
I make a motion to approve the animal control fiscal year 2026 budget.
I'll second that.
I vote yes. Ms. O'Connor?
Yeah.
Mr. Pizarro?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Tompkins?
Yes.
And Mr. Trudell?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
No,
Well,
we have to
we got-
close
we
on
got-
that, right?
We gotta go back to the library.
Well, other than that.
Thank
Um,
you. So we got.
We have the information, yeah.
I'm sorry, we're waiting for them. Do
She's just having one.
you want to call her, Michelle?
Yep, I have had Emily calling her, so we do have some figures that were sent to. She did ascertain that they were increases in, so can you share
Yeah.
what we have so far? What's come in?
Can you hang on just a
Of
second?
course. And I hope it corresponds to the line items.
Exactly what I'm.
All right, let's see if we can line this up. No,
So I'm looking at
So,
the
okay.
preliminary budget detail report.
Yep.
Appears to be page 110 out of 157.
so what we have so far. Trying to see what I want to go back and just look at where it makes sense for what she's sharing with us. Did she share with you something prior to that?
No.
So when you talked to her, she was getting the breakdown,
Yeah.
and this is what we have so far, okay? So she was saying there's a 15% economic increase, which equals 6807. Do we know what the economic increase is?
No.
Public computers to Vodavi, 2415.
We're just getting this in
Upgrades.
real time, so thank you for your patience.
I know. So the public computer upgrades, was an increase. You see the $9,200 there? That is an increase of 2415 from previous. That's the way I'm reading it.
Mhm.
3 to 8 scheduler accounts in our scheduler software.
I don't know if that's.
Wonderful. Okay. Okay, my Libro is new. So if you look at, I'm going with what
But
makes
she
sense.
said that
So-
that was
New this year.
new this year, not next year.
I think it's new in the budget. She's writing, my Libro is new.
Meaning they paid for it this year and they have to pay the same amount next year. It's not a one-time.
No, it's
Right,
a renewal.
it's a
Exactly.
subscription.
It's a subscription.
Yeah.
But if it was in this year's budget, was it in this
It's a-
year's budget or
it's
is
a-
it just,
$4,687 increase,
I'm sorry, 4,000?
$687. Is that how you're reading this?
That's how I'm reading it. Oh, and I'm wondering if it would be possible if we could have Maureen jump on Zoom since we have Zoom set
Yeah,
up
she
here.
can get.
That
it.
might be the best,
Please
best
do.
way to do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time and I apologize. I know it's been a long day for you. Would she be able to find yes, we have the link. It
Yeah.
was in the invitation.
It's also on the agenda.
I just think that might be the best way to
Nope,
expedite it,
yep,
so
we
there's
need
clear
to-
answers.
So you can answer for us.
That's 7,000, that's half of it right there.
She gave us a detailed accounting list, as you can see.
Yeah.
But how we're matching that for, explanation's sake, I want you to hear exactly how, if it is changed, increased, is new. I need her to jump on, yeah. Okay.
Waiting for her to get back to me and I'm just going to look for the thing in case she needs it before. Yeah.
She could even just call them too.
Thank you, Jeanette. I think she'd need to see the Zoom number either way. Thank you.
Michelle, just while you're working
Of
through that,
course.
we didn't talk about the library lost materials fees revolving account. And it looks like that's continuing to run a positive
Yes,
balance. And the approved amount is substantially higher than,
I think because it's brand new.
no,
And
it's not brand new, it's been around for a while.
I'm sorry.
Said that last year.
Yeah, just added it last
All
year.
right, last year was the first
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
okay.
Sorry,
I
not brand
remember
new.
seeing it
Yes.
last year.
It's fairly new, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
but the approved budget for that is substantially higher than
Seats, yeah.
receipts or expenditures.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I
Yep.
don't have a problem with that because you can't spend more than you bring in.
Correct, thank you.
Yeah, okay. So back to,
Oh, there she is.
Oh, good. Okay.
Okay. There she is.
Sorry, it's not letting me turn my camera on, but I guess you don't need to see me for this.
Hi, Maureen, we can-
Okay, so that we went through and got a breakdown of all of that. So 6,800 was a 15% economic increase just to the services we have.
What
We
does that mean,
are-
Maureen? If you could just share what an economic increase, how does that line up with?
So like our subscription costs for certain things went up. So that was just like general increase in subscription services and programs. The
Which-
public, I'm sorry.
So you're quoting a $6,800 increase overall, but they kind of want to hear a little bit of examples of what's gone up under that equipment?
Okay, hang on one second.
like, was it the Vodavi prescription, Canva prescription? Cause yes, subscription, not prescription. I'm not still on public health. So we're just need a sense of those finances. I'm speaking for you, but I assume you would want that.
That's what we're looking for.
Yep. I do know under the computers, the computer upgrades, she's noting there are upgrades.
Maureen, could we unmute her? She somehow ended up on mute and she can't unmute herself.
Is that what you said?
Yep.
Yeah, she just texted me.
Where's your mouse?
Oh, there you go.
Put in a 15% increase.
There you go. Okay, we can hear you. Okay.
So in answer to your question about Vodavi, yes, that is increasing. They previously did not handle our Manomet managed services and they do now. The 15%.
So how much is that? How much is the Vodavi for management services?
That is about $2,400.
Okay,
And then we added scheduler accounts to our scheduling software for our section leaders here. And that was about $3,400.
okay, thank you.
Looking for some computer upgrades of $4,200.
Is that in Manomet or Plymouth branch?
Plymouth branch, we have 12 public
Thank you.
computers. And then we had a duplicate line in there for computer peripherals, so 1,725 can be removed.
Okay.
And then I'm sorry, $1,725.
Yeah.
That line
Yeah.
can be removed
Yeah.
under the budget detail. So that will be a decrease. Okay,
And the My Libro app was new FY 25, but next year will be the first full fiscal year that we have that, and that cost will be $4,687.
so it's a partial year and now it's
This full year.
it's a
The
full
full
year.
year for
Okay, for
FY26.
9,000. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yep,
And
okay.
then we added a service through SpringShare who does our like calendar of events, room bookings. There was an added service to that of having maps of the library when people are booking rooms and registering for events, and that was $918.
Consultant for, it says 919,
Yeah, sorry.
919.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a new fee. That's an addition, that's new this year, the
It'll be
consulting for maps.
similar to My Libro, it'll be for the full year.
Okay.
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 Okay,
Spring share.
I'm good with that. Anyone
Does
else?
that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. No, we appreciate the question. We apologize for the delay.
Any other questions for library?
Make a motion to approve the library fiscal 2026 budget.
Second.
I vote yes. Ms. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Pizarro?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Tompkins?
Yes.
Mr. Trudell?
Yes.
Do we have any other?
Leaving the 1725 in there though.
We'll leave it in. We'll approve the select.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
I don't think it's, thank you.
Yes,
Okay.
that's a good point.
Any other business before this subcommittee? Hearing none. Motion to adjourn.
You want me to make it?
Please. Yes, please.
Make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Mike,
Okay, Ms. O'Connor,
yes.
Mr. Pizarro,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Ms. Tompkins.
Yes.
Mr. Trudell,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So we are adjourned at 4:54 PM.